All right. So, seeing guys are streaming in, which is good. Karibuni sana. Hope everyone is well. Good to see you guys back here for another weekly swing. Of course, lots of guys also from the daily analysis as well. Good to see you here. Karibuni sana. Hope you're well. Hope you had a good weekend and a good start to the week. Really glad that you could join us. So, for the sake of guys who are new here, John is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Me alongside Mitch. Mitch, how are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here. Let's see if we can get some nice opportunities for the week. I know we had some for last week, so at least we'll see what ends up happening, or at least what happened last week.
Yep. All right, so let's jump straight into it and see what we had last week. Do a brief recap of the ones that we did have. But unfortunately, we don't have this week, and of course, end up looking at what the situation is looking like today. For those of you that are quick enough, of course, you can end up feeling free to take a screenshot of this. This is what we're going to be watching out for this week. But before we come to this, let's first just do a brief recap of some of the currency pairs that we had last week that we don't have, and then we'll end up looking at the situation today. Quite a number of changes that we have, but we'll be looking at that in a bit. So back and off, we have the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. Now, for this one last week, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Can't see the three regions right there that we're expecting to possibly see buying opportunities working off from, and also definitely areas where you possibly did need to manage your trades. So you can see on Monday, price was somewhere within here. We're expecting maybe to see price come in within this region right here, maybe to look for the buy. You can see that on Wednesday. That's when the market was down within this region here, took off to the upside. You did need to manage that. Although price did break to the upside, but also expected maybe to see the market either break to the upside, pull back in, and continue to move up higher. And see that could be happening right now, maybe moving into this week. But unfortunately, due to the changes that we have, based on the numbers, you could find that could be a currency pair that could be giving us some issues. So we will be walking away from that one this week. But of course, if you do have any trades running in from last week, then feel free to possibly end up managing and seeing how much more further the market does end up going if it does. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So this one we're expecting to see some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions we had and what we're expecting. Maybe we did want to see either the sellers possibly react off that region to the downside and hopefully break this region. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Price came back in within here, but generally held within this particular region here. It's like the big boy sellers were just not interested. Consider the market really ranged within there. By that thing, like it's possibly starting to make a move right now. But unfortunately, it's also not something that we're going to be watching out for, because you could find that the market could possibly also continue to range, within this particular region moving into this week. So the next one that we do have for review is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. For this one, we're watching out for buying opportunities. Price was somewhere here last week on Monday. Wanted to see the price break to the upside, quite strong. Then after that, possibly end up looking for a buy to possibly end up moving up higher. Consider the market just barely breached, held within here, went to the upside. On the pullback, unfortunately, we couldn't get the buy working off here. You can see that the market did break to the downside. And you can see that the market is now coming back in within this region right here. So unfortunately, this was not the best of buying opportunities, I would say, but also moving into this week, generally not really something that you should be watching out, because you could find that the market could be bouncing off between, those two small regions, or possibly end up forming a range. And we definitely do not want that. So the next one is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. For this one, we wanted to see whether we could get some sell. You can see what we were thinking. Price was somewhere within here on Monday. We either wanted to see the market break to the downside, which it did. The market pulled back in within this region right here. Remember what we always talk about. When you see these weak breaches, there's normally a chance and a high chance that the market will possibly end up coming back in. You can see that last attempt of the buyers to come in before the sellers came down. Of course, if you grab the sell there, generally you need to manage your trade within here. But unfortunately, also for us this week, this is not something that we're going to be watching out for. Could find the market possibly ranging within here, because could find that the New Zealand dollar and the US dollar could both be fighting in terms of weakness. So that's not something that we're going to be watching out for. So the next one is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. For this one, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten buy. And you can't see that on Monday price was here. We're expecting maybe to see the buy first break to the upside of this region. Then if we do end up getting a pullback, possibly look for the buys there. or maybe the market coming back in within this region right here. And you can see that the market came back in within here, and on Thursday, the market did actually end up taking off from within here. So if you got this buy, then hopefully you are managing your trade. Maybe you could find the market possibly still moving up in a choppy manner, but it's also highly unlikely because you could find that both the New Zealand dollar and the euro could both be fighting in terms of, I think it could be strength. So you could find that this one could possibly end up giving us some sort of issues. So moving on into the next one, and the second last one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. This one wanted to see some sales coming through. Can't that on Monday price was here. We're expecting either to see the market break and hold within here, then possibly try to see whether we could get some sales. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen. The market came up higher. We're expecting possibly to see something off this region. Possibly got sales there, then you did need to manage your trades here. And I hope that most of you guys can see that, the trades normally tend to end up working out, especially from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's when, the markets really tend to move. Friday sometimes, especially like on Friday because we have the non-farm payroll, but mostly if you end up focusing on getting your trades, between Tuesday and Thursday, seems that that's when the markets do really tend to end up moving. So for this one, also another currency pair that we won't have this week, could find the market could continue to be choppy, maybe somewhere within this region right here. So last but not least, we do have the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one, we wanted to see some sales coming through. You can see the three regions right there that we had pointed out, and also what we're expecting to end up seeing. So on Monday, price was here. Wanted to see maybe the market pull back in within this region right here. But it seems that there was an SNR somewhere within this region that was good enough. It seems that the sellers did start with the push coming down, reached the downside. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the pullback. Maybe we might get it this week coming in, but you also could find that the market could also end up ranging within this region. So it's also something that we're not really going to be focusing on for this week. But at least the sales did really end up coming through. The only thing is the pullbacks were not really coming in like we expected. Possibly something to do with the cards of the Swiss franc. I don't know, Mitch, what do you think? Possibly cards, huh?
Yeah, it must be the cards. We saw them showing a lot of weakness, I think. I think even the number is, I think, what, -6 or something, or -7.
-7.
So definitely the big boys are dumping the Canadian dollar. Yeah.
All right. So quite a number of changes. I'm sure you guys can see a lot of weakness came in on the USD after the non-farm payroll last week. So the 4 this week, we're looking at a -2. Maybe even might get even weaker, maybe even as we get into next week. But you can see that some of them are maintaining, like the Swiss franc is maintaining. The Canadian dollar from neutral this week, extremely weak. So we'll see what's up with that. Also the New Zealand dollar, still neutral, but this time around it's a bit more stronger than it was last week, but still more or less like a neutral figure. The Australian dollar also becoming a bit stronger, but still weak, -6 to -4. The Great British Pound, from neutral, just coming up to become slightly stronger. So this is what we're going to be watching out for this week. So for the guys who are new here, we mix and match up the sells versus the neutrals and the buys versus the neutrals. So we don't mix and match up things on the same side, or the buys versus the sell. Only the sell versus the neutrals, the buys versus the neutral, and of course gold and the Dow Jones. Those ones are just more or less like standalone. So hopefully you've taken note of that. And I think you can start off with the first currency pair. So the Australian dollar versus everything here. Then move on to the cards versus everything here. Great British Pound versus everything here. Last but not least, the Swiss franc versus everything there. But we'll start off with gold and the Dow. So, Mitch, over to you.
So here on gold, last week, you guys remember we were looking for selling opportunities based on these 3 areas. You can see the game plan that we did have based on us getting the market to actually come back within this particular area and looking for a selling opportunity. Now, we were here during the Wednesday or Thursday live trading session where the market did manage to actually start coming down. So that opportunity happened even during that live trading session. But we can see the areas that we did point out that we do need to manage, because as the price got towards this buyer's area, we can see the price did end up giving us a pullback. Now, within this area, please, now the market structure possibly seems as if it's possibly going to actually maintain, or at least change in some sense. Because before you can see we're coming down, making lower lows and lower highs. But right now you can see this price does seem to be in some sort of range. So our bias here will still be to look for selling opportunities. you can see if we're within a range, the top of the range is exactly where we are at now. We'll wait to see if the price can actually end up coming down lower within that particular location. But there's also a possibility, especially if these sellers right here did not have enough strength to bring this price down lower. There's a possibility we could get the price possibly spiking to the upside, inciting a number of people to look for the buys before we do end up seeing those selling opportunities coming in. So in this situation, I think we'll just need to be patient, wait to see. You can see the seller's reaction over here doesn't necessarily look too strong. So we'll need to watch out how the market will end up reacting within this area, especially if you do find the price going up where it breaches, but just maintains within this area. That will actually be a good indication that many people are looking for buys, and you'll probably find the market actually coming down lower, and then we'll be able to look for those selling opportunities. Still making sure we're watching out for all these problem areas. Yeah.
So you think maybe if we get a false breach to the upside, could get something like that? Any chance maybe going up higher all the way to the top red SNR?
There is a possibility. It just depends on how the market maintains or goes above this level. I think if it does and we do get the price holding above where it's a proper big breach, then I think the possibility could end up still coming towards this area before it actually comes down. But this will be the level that if the price goes above this, then we'll start looking for buying opportunities. But for now, I think the sells are definitely still on. Just maybe needs to incite a few more buyers before the sell comes in.
We could find something like that as well. So I think hopefully you guys have taken note of that. So the buyers is still to look for sell on gold. So moving over to the Dow Jones. So what do you think about this one?
Now, on the Dow Jones, our bias here was to look for buying opportunities. But remember, the price was at the top of this particular area. And you can clearly see how we were dictating or how we wanted to see the market going. We wanted a proper big breach to the upside. So this is a similar situation that I was mentioning that could happen with gold, where sometimes when the price is breached and you just see it holding, maintaining, not really gone that far, there's a possibility that the prices could pull back before actually coming down lower. So overall, I know here we're still looking for buys. The price did end up coming down low. Wanted to see how the market would end up reacting within this particular support and resistance area. But we can clearly see when the price came down and attempted to go up, we couldn't break that level. So there's a possibility we need a better price. So right now, the way the price is coming down lower, you can see the price has been here within this particular area before. But this doesn't mean that this level has actually been broken. You could easily find the price breaches to the upside, quite aggressive, and we do see the price holding above, we should be able to look for those buying opportunities. But if the price actually ends up holding below, then chances are we could be coming back all the way down towards this main buyer's area before we do see the price going to the upside. Yeah.
Right. So you're talking about maybe something like this, where our price could be coming down, possibly tapping this region right here. I think this is like a daily level. I think that we've been looking at the last week or so, and maybe you could find the market tapping within there, some sort of range going on within there. So I hope guys have taken note of that, more or less the same areas that we had last week. So see what happens on that front. So I think we can now start looking at the currency pairs. So we're done with the gold and the Dow. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the neutral. So the first one off the line is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, this week, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So we're going to be watching out for this region at the top right here. Definitely a key level where you could find the market pulling back and into. It's possible. Right now, we're holding within an area of resistance. Consider the sellers have pushed the market down off this region before. They can't do it again. And they're definitely doing it right now. So I would best advise, don't end up chasing the selling opportunities now. We can see if we can't get the market coming back in within here. You could even find that the market could possibly end up tapping within this region, maybe even end up going for a better price, maybe higher than these levels that you're seeing here. But generally, if you find the market possibly tapping there and coming back in, comes back within this region, I think we could be gearing up for sales. You could even find that maybe the selling opportunities could potentially end up even going lower than this particular region right here. But make sure that you definitely manage your trade within this particular region right here. Alternatively, of course, if the market breaks and goes above all the way to the top here, maybe you could look for some, buying opportunities, but you also need to be well aware that the buying opportunities that you're going to be chasing could possibly or definitely are counters. So be well aware of that. But you still could find that the market could come in within here and then possibly end up still coming down. So watch out for that. Now, on the other hand, since we have the market already coming down, if you're going to be looking for selling opportunities right now, because I know that some of you are also highly skilled in terms of trading, it also depends on the story of what's going on the 1 hour time frame. But of course, if you're going to be swinging this, you're better off waiting. Either wait and see if the market could either bounce off this region right here. Remember that we're also approaching a region where we do have buyers. So in as much as we have these buyers down here, there's also a region right here. So it might end up putting your risk to reward a bit off. You're either better waiting to see whether we could get a general breach of this region to the downside and a pullback and a hold, for it to resume with itself, or possibly wait and see if the market can possibly react off here. Because you also have like some sort of a minor scenario within there where you could find the buyers possibly reacting. So hopefully take a note of that. Remember the red SNR at the top. In case the market goes above that, then you possibly have to wait and see if the market can actually come back into the downside. So the next one is the euro against the Australian dollar. So this is also a new entrant. This week, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. For the guys who are new to trading, bear in mind that the Australian dollar on this one is to the right, the counter currency, unlike the other one that we're looking at. So by selling the Australian dollar, then that means that we need to buy the base, which is the euro. So for this one, we're going to be watching out for buys. Right now, you can see that the buyers have already started their move going up, but don't chase. This one is maybe something to do with the Australian dollar pairs that are already on the move. We can see if you can actually end up getting the market coming back in within this region right here, because it can. There's a high possibility it can. Of course, stopping out all the guys who are definitely attempting their buys right now. They're definitely putting their stops here. You could find that the market might actually tap in within this region, maybe stop them out, still come back in, and then you find that that's when the buy is going to work. Alternatively, what we could do, because we're also approaching regions where we have sellers, you don't know whether these sellers are going to react. So you're better off waiting. Let these buyers finish, their push going up. If they can actually end up making it past this region and we get a nice strong breach on the pullback, you definitely could look for your buying opportunities somewhere within this region, moving to the upside. So hopefully you take a note of that. So let's see what happens in the course of the week. But ideally, the buyers should be to look for buying opportunities. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. And hopefully, guys, the new guys, especially in trading, can take note that the Australian dollar on this one is back to the left. So it's the best currency pair. You can see that this one is also on the move. So in terms of correlation, it should tell you that it's the Australian dollar pairs that, are definitely on the move. This one being the third one, and you can definitely see these moves happening. So for this one, we had earmarked these three areas right here. Don't really look for your selling opportunities now. Let's see if these buyers, these sellers can really break this region to the downside really well. The market comes back in within this area right here, then we could potentially end up looking for selling opportunities at this point in time. Right now, we're still not sure whether the market is going to break to the downside. So if you end up taking that risk, you might be taking some extra risk on that trade, as much as it might work. So might not really be the best. Wait and see if we can get the breach to the downside, but also give these buyers the benefit of doubt. They do end up reacting off here, especially if you get like some sort of a probe or price action signal here where you can't generally see that the buyers are piling up pressure on the sellers. Then best wait and see whether you can get your selling opportunities maybe higher up, maybe somewhere within here to possibly end up coming down. But you also could find that the market could possibly end up getting all the way to the top, somewhere within here. It's a slim chance, but you still could keep that option open in case the markets do end up, or the big boys do end up deciding to get that price there. So last but not least, for the Australian dollar pairs, we have the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, we had it last week. We wanted to see whether we could get some sales. You can see the three regions right there that we had pointed out. On Monday, price was here. We wanted to see whether the market could pull back in within here. Just came shy of that area. Then after that, the market did come down. Also expecting to see whether we could get a breach to the downside and a hold for us to resume with the sell. It looked like the breach did end up happening, although in a very choppy manner, but consider the buyers attempted to break this region to the upside, which was they couldn't, unsuccessful, and you can see that the sellers are now starting to come back in, possibly pushing the market down lower. So for this week, these are the three areas that we have taken note of, and hopefully you guys can also end up taking note of them. So, of course, we do have like more or less like the mid area there, conservative all the way at the bottom down here. The market comes in within this region, maybe you could be looking to manage your trade. But also one thing I would end up advising is don't end up looking for the selling opportunities now. This must be like a minor area on the 1 hour time frame, because you can see that the market has bounced off here quite a number of times. So hopefully we'll get maybe these buyers reacting. If they do end up reacting off this region to the upside, and we do get the market attempting to go to the upside of this area and they can't, then this would be good. At least try and grab yourselves as close as possible within this top region right here. By the time the market comes in here, if you get any issues, you definitely could be managing your trade somewhere within this area right here. And of course, even like right now when the market is attempting to come to the downside, the best way you can end up approaching this is wait and see whether you can get a breach of this region to the downside. If the market pulls back in within here, you still could end up getting some selling opportunities here. But you'll have to end up reading the story on the 1 hour time frame to really end up seeing what's going on within here. Because if the market breaks to the downside, attempts to go back up and can't and hold below here, you could definitely look for your selling opportunities here, maybe keeping your stock somewhere within this region right here, so that at least the risk to reward coming down does definitely end up making sense. Now, on the other hand, if these buyers within here do end up reacting, there's still a possibility price could be coming back up within this region, maybe even end up attempting to break to the upside. So let's wait and see. But basically, based on what we're seeing with the correlation, seems like the big boys are interested in the Australian dollar pairs. So I don't know if the pullback is going to come in that deep. But ideally, the best selling opportunity is definitely here or somewhere within here if you're highly skilled. So hopefully, guys are taking note of that. So I guess that's pretty much it for the Australian dollar pairs. So right now, we're going to move on to the next set of currency pairs, which I think are the Canadian dollar pairs. So mixing and matching that up with everything on the neutral, starting off with the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So Mitch, what's the story on this one?
Yeah, so here we have the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. Remember, last week we're looking for buying opportunities. When we were discussing the market, it was within the seller's area. And you can see we did not want to actually jump in on any buys within that seller's area. We're hoping to see the price actually come back within this particular location. But you can see it just came back to the closest level, which was a support and resistance area. You can see the way the market reacted here. And during the week, we did manage to actually get a buying opportunity. We did miss it. You can see there was another opportunity here. Once the price did break to the upside, you can see a pullback that came in that did give us a buying opportunity. Now, you can clearly see how aggressive these sellers did end up reacting within that location. So right now, we're back within an area where the buyers, and we do want to look for buying opportunities. But just because we're back within a buyer's area, do not look for those buys. You can see how aggressive these sellers came in. So we need them to actually die out before we are able to look for the buying opportunities. So we've identified these three areas, or at least what could end up happening. Could end up finding the market attempting to actually come down lower. So you could end up seeing it attempting to come down, possibly even within this area before we actually see the price going up higher. The other possibility is you could end up finding we are actually going to end up getting some sort of probe where the price could attempt to come down lower. Once it breaches to the upside, challenging at least this seller, and it excited many people to start looking for sells, then we should end up being able to look for a buying opportunity as well. So right now, do not look for the buys. The sellers still look strong, and we do not look for the sells as well because we're back within a buyer's area. We need to see what type of reaction happens within this particular location, whether or not we see the price holding below. If we do see it holding below, we look for our buying opportunities at the bottom area within the buyer's area. But if not, and the price is able to actually maintain within this area, and in order for that to happen, really for us to see some sort of probe to come in, then a buying opportunity should be available there. So we just have to wait and see what happens during the week. So the next pair we did have was the euro against the Canadian dollar. Similar situation with the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. We were meant to be looking for buying opportunities. When we were discussing the markets last week, the price was within an area where they're sellers. Similar situation right now, the fact that we're within an area where they're buyers. So since we do want to look for buying opportunities, you can see the price did pull back. Did not come all the way to the extreme, but you can see it pulled back towards the buyer's area and did give us an opportunity to go to the upside. So right now, at least it did end up following one of the patterns that we did end up pointing out. But at the moment, you can see the price has actually gone to the upside. We've not necessarily gotten all the way to the main sellers, but we do know we want to look for buying opportunities. But as usual, we do need some sort of pullback. And you can see the way this level right here seems to be a seller's area that the price has kept on holding so many times within this particular location. And this is the first time that the price has been able to actually breach this area. So what we want to see is how the price is actually going to pull back within this area. Maybe even give us some sort of probe, inciting a few more people to look for the sells, and we could end up seeing those buying opportunities coming in within that area. But there's a possibility as well. You might find that the buyers are continuing to end up getting strength. So if the price is able to breach this area to the upside and the price holds above, I think we should be able to continue those buying opportunities as well. So right now, the main thing we need is either a pullback or to see whether or not the buyers are actually going to break this main seller's area at the top. Yeah. So I hope that is clear on that. So next pair we had was the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Now on this pair, we were looking for buying opportunities, not selling opportunities. You can see even based on the arrows that we did have, but we were back within an area where they're selling. So at that point in time, we did mention we needed more of a pullback before we are able to look for those buying opportunities. Or if we did get the price breaching this seller's area to the upside and holding above, we could have been able to look for those buys. But you can clearly see the sellers are the ones who did manage to come in. We were hoping to see whether or not this buyer's area would hold, but you can clearly see the price just continued grinding down lower. Hardly any signs of any big boy buyers. So it's just the sellers coming in. But this week, the fact that we do want to look for selling opportunities on this and the biases have changed, we can be able to look for sells, but you can clearly see we're back within this area where the buyers, where we were looking for buyers last week. So this is not a good place to look for any selling opportunities just yet. We have broken so many support and resistance levels. You can see there was a main buyers area here where the price has able to be breached, but we have not necessarily gotten that pullback within this particular area. So we could end up seeing something of the sort where the price could end up even probing, possibly even coming back all the way to this particular SNR, where you see the price coming down, the price holds below. I think we should be able to look for selling opportunities. But alternatively, since we're within a buyer's area, but you can clearly see there are no very strong buyers, at least showing right now. So could end up finding this price breaching this area to the downside. If we do see the price holding below, or at least we get a pullback, the price holds below, then we should be able to continue with those selling opportunities on the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So right now, we're within our buyer's area and we're looking for sales. So it's not necessarily a good time to look for any trading opportunities. We'll just have to wait to see how the price ends up reacting. So John, I think you just need to point out that, and yeah.
But about something like that.
Yep.
And possibly a break to the downside. Like that. Right. Got it.
So I hope that's clear. But right now, we do need some sort of pullback. So I guess we can go on to the next Canadian dollar pair. Have the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So brand new entered on our watch list. Remember, both these pairs were, or it's either one was neutral. Both of them were either showing strength or weakness. So it wasn't really on our watch list. But we can clearly see we want to buy. You can see the way the buyers have been coming in. But as usual, we never want to buy within a strong seller's area. And the fact that if you think about where you would have bought, move, remember, starting all the way down here. Meaning, if you had bought down here, by now you'd have actually been looking to actually exit your trade. So most people start jumping in on their buys very late when it's so obvious, while most people are actually exiting those trades. So in order for us to buy, definitely don't buy at such a high price. You can see these areas that were pointed out. Right now, we do need some sort of pullback. And you're seeing the correlation with all these Canadian dollar pairs. Nearly all of them need some sort of pullback. So right now, we can end up getting the price actually pulling back within this area. Could end up even coming all the way down to the extreme before we do see the buying opportunity. So, but we'll wait to see how the market will possibly react within one of these two areas. So once it gets to the first problem area, we'll wait to see whether or not we do end up getting some sort of probe or something of the sort like this. We do see that, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities. And you'll be able to realize, use correlation, you'll be looking at all the Canadian dollars moving back at the same time. And they could be within certain areas, buyers and sellers areas within the same time. And that's when you could end up finding the move. So if you find the prices within these areas and you see probes, have a look at the other pairs as well, as you could end up finding, you could end up getting multiple opportunities on these other pairs. Now, even though we do want to jump in on the buying opportunities, and we are within a seller's area, you might find that the sellers might not necessarily react. So looking for a buy here would be a bit too risky, but there's also a possibility the price could break this area to the upside. So I think if the price is able to break and hold above, we should be able to continue. At least that would show that these sellers are no longer interested, and we could end up continuing to look for those buys. But right now, it would be a bit dangerous to look for those buying opportunities until we either get that pullback coming in or the price actually going to the upside. So that is clear on what we are hoping to do on these Canadian dollar pairs.
All right, so let's see what happens. Expecting a lot of weakness, possibly to still end up coming in on the card pair. So I hope you guys have taken notes what the plan is. So we're going to move on to the next set of currency pairs, which are the GBP pairs. Mix and match them up with everything on the neutral. So we're going to start off with the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So this is also a currency pair we had last week. Although last week we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities on this one. But this week we're going to be trying to see whether we can get buys. But you can see the three regions that we had right there, possibly expecting to see whether we could have gotten a reaction of this region right here to come to the downside. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And you can see that the market did end up coming in all the way to the top, somewhere within this region right here. Also definitely something to do with the non-farm payroll once it came out. Lots of weakness on the USD that you can definitely end up seeing on this one. So unfortunately, this one, there wasn't much of a sell last week. So I guess we'll try and see whether we can actually end up getting the buys this week. Definitely waiting for the pullbacks, but I hope guys can definitely end up taking note of these three regions right here. So we have the aggressive conservatives and aggressive conservatives here. Let's see if we can get either the market pulling back in within this region right here. If the market does end up pulling back in within that region there, then we could definitely end up trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities here, possibly targeting that. But right now, don't look for your buying opportunities. We're more or less still within a seller's region. Remember that SNR is not price. So just because we're a bit far away from here doesn't mean that we're not within a resistance area. It's generally the whole of this region. You can see that the market has reacted off there before. So let's wait and see if we can get a nice strong breach to the upside. If the buyers who are coming up, because you can see that they're really coming up quite aggressively, especially after the non-farm payroll. Let's see what the sellers can have to say about it. But you can generally see that their pullback is seeming a bit weak, which is good, because ideally that's what we want to see. But give the buyers the benefit of doubt as well. Let's see if they can end up sustaining this momentum. If we do break to the upside and we get a nice strong breach, then we could end up possibly looking for the buys there, possibly end up resuming to move to the upside. So I hope that guys have taken notes of that. So the next one is the euro against the Great British Pound. So also this one, we had it last week. Last week, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the three regions right there that we had pointed out. So on Monday, price was somewhere here, or possibly expecting to wait, maybe some sort of a breach to the downside, then the market coming back in to look for the buys. Fortunately, that didn't happen there. You can see that the market did end up pulling back in all the way to within this region right here. But it's like the buyers were really struggling, not really end up pushing the market to the upside. So this week, the plot has switched. So we're going to be trying to see whether we can end up getting some selling opportunities on this one. So do watch out for these three areas right here. And let's see what happens. So either the market is going to pull back in within this region right here, like where it's coming back until. So we can see what happens. Either we could get the market coming back in within here and we could look for the selling opportunities to come down. Make sure that you do some really good money management here, when if you will be targeting areas lower. Alternatively, what you could do is consider the market is also getting into some sort of a small range within this area here. There's definitely a 1 hour level somewhere within this region right here. You could find that maybe sales could be working off here. But you'll definitely have to end up reading the story on a smaller time frame so that at least your stop loss doesn't have to be all the way up here. It could definitely be somewhere within this region, just above this range, so that at least by the time the market comes in within the bottom of the range, at least the risk to reward will definitely end up making sense. But you can see that it's only 21 pips, which is not really that much. So ideally, you could also end up waiting. If the market does actually end up coming down, break this area to the downside and the sellers are back in the game, then you could definitely try and see whether you could grab your selling opportunities here. So more or less, there are three options. One, waiting for the pullback there. There's also this option here, waiting for the breach to the downside, for the market to break this area to the downside and on the pullback. Alternatively, you could end up looking for your selling opportunities here, but you'd have to go down a smaller time frame to really end up making sure that risk to reward does end up making sense. But the buyer is to look for selling opportunities. So hopefully, guys have taken note of that. But also remember the red SNR at the top. It's a long shot, but it's also possible, and it's still possible that the market can still end up going back all the way to within that area. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can end up getting some buying opportunities on it. It seems like we were also watching out to see whether we could have gotten some buys on this one last week. And you can see the three regions that we had pointed out, but the market just got stagnant within this area. And then later on in the week, that's when the pullback came in. So we'll see whether the buys can work this week. So let's see what happens within these three areas right here, more or less the same areas that we did end up having. So the plan is still the same. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in within here. The best buying opportunities right now are somewhere within this region right here. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. You definitely could find some buys maybe working also off this area, because you can see that there's also a support region within this region. But you also have to possibly read the story, the smaller time frame to see when the big boy buyers do really end up coming in to look for the buys. But the best buys generally are somewhere within this region right here, just based on what we're seeing on the chart. So you could get that buy. Of course, you could also end up getting the buys at the top here. If you end up missing out within this region right here and the market moves to the upside, if you can get a nice strong break of these sellers at the top right here, then the pullback comes in nice and slow, then you could possibly try and see whether you could resume your buying opportunities at that point. So watch out for that. But also remember the region at the bottom, also a region where there is a possibility, though it would be a slim chance that the market could get there. But, since you're speculating, it's always best to always have and, keep your options open, because you never know what the market could do. So you still could also end up watching out for that region at the bottom. So last but not least, we have the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. Seems like the market is taking off from within this area. We're going to be trying to see whether we can get buys. But don't chase your buying opportunities right now, because there's definitely a region somewhere within here that we do have sellers. You never know how they're going to react. You can see that the market has reacted off this area before. So you could find that either the market could come back in within this region right here, and there's a possibility it could do that. And then after that, you could find the buys working, maybe something like that. Or let me see if I can put it much better. So we're talking about maybe price coming in to the downside of this region right here. Maybe the sellers do end up reacting, price comes back in within their taps within that area, and then maybe you could try and see whether we could lift. But make sure that you also still do some good money management within this region right here, because you could find that the market or the sellers could still give you issues on your way up. So watch out for that. Now, on the other hand, of course, you still could also end up getting buys. Let's say if the market breaks this area to the upside on the pullback, still could get buys here. But you also need to end up reading the story on a smaller time frame, so that at least you can get your stop, within these regions right here, so that at least the risk to reward makes sense. But alternatively, at least if the market does end up taking off, pulls back in within this region right here, then you still could end up looking for your buying opportunities somewhere within this region right here. So also for this one, more or less like three options. So there's option one, there's option two at the top there, but there's also this option right here, if you're really good at reading the story of what's going on. So I guess that's pretty much it for the GBPs, but also remember, just like the others, there's a long shot down somewhere within this region, but still a possibility that price can come back in within that area. So that's pretty much it for the GBP pair. So we're going to move on to the last ones, which are the Swiss franc pairs. Mix and match them up with everything on the neutral. And of course, remember, if you have any questions, feel free to send them in on the Q&A. We'll be looking at them in a bit. So CHF, Mitch,
yeah.
What do you think?
So we are seeing CHF strength, meaning most of these pairs were always going to look for selling opportunities, because the Swiss franc on most of them is the counter, except for Swiss franc against the yen, but we'll have a look at it. Now, this kind of pair, we do want to look for sells. We can see the price was going to the upside. We were within some sort of range, and we can clearly see it seems maybe on Friday or so, or Thursday, the price didn't manage to actually break this area to the downside, which is a good thing in what we want. We have approached an area where there are buyers at the moment, but as usual, or at least the pattern that we've seen a lot, especially when the prices are ranging, it's most likely to actually end up pulling back within this area, possibly even giving us some sort of probe. Remember, I think you've seen us putting a lot of probes, but that's because probes do end up giving us a very clear indication whether or not a level is holding and what the big boys are actually interested in doing. So if we are able to see the price pulling back towards the bottom area here, we should be able to look for selling opportunities. But there's a possibility, sometimes the markets just run away, especially if the sellers are very strong. So I think if the price is able to come down lower, I think breach and hold below, then we should be able to continue with the selling opportunities. But be careful, especially when the price is actually on its way up, because right now we are expecting that pullback. So if the price is able to actually break this area to the upside, but instead of coming down lower, it actually holds above, there's a possibility we could end up coming back within the range, meaning this whole big thing to the downside and to the upside would just be a huge probe. Meaning that if that's the case, that would mean that this buyer's area is still holding, meaning the price is still within this particular huge range. And if that's the case, that's when we look for the selling opportunities at the top of the range. But for now, let's get confirmation that the price is actually holding below. If it is, there would be a very nice selling opportunity within this middle sector right here. So I hope that is clear, at least on the game plan. Sorry?
So there's that option, and you're also looking at this one. If the market breaks to the downside, comes back in, and maybe we can resume with the sales coming down.
Yeah.
All right. So
let's see something like that.
It's a long shot, at least if the market goes back into the range. So at the top, so you guys have also taken note that that's what we're looking at. So next one, EURUSCHF. What do you think about this one?
Here on this pair, we do want to look for selling opportunities. We can see the price has been coming down, and we have identified these three locations that the sales could work out from. If we're reading the story of how the market has come down, you can see the sellers right here who pushed this price down all the way to this particular level. You can see the buyers attempted to come back up, and within this area, they were very strong buyers because they were able to push the price up all the way towards this particular area. And you can see a very nice probe that came in. And once the price came in, you can see there was a pullback towards that area, and the price has actually started coming down lower, as you can see. Now, the main thing that we want to look for is sells here, but you can see the fact that we're within this buyer's area. We do not necessarily want to jump in on selling opportunities just yet. However, you can see that these buyers are hardly showing any reaction. So doesn't mean that the buyers are no longer there. They could be waiting for some sort of news event or something. We'll end up having a look at the fundamentals later. But there's a possibility if the buyers don't necessarily react, we could end up seeing the price breaching. And if we do see it holding below, we can be able to continue with those selling opportunities. But be aware, since we're within this buyer's area, a news event could come in and you could see the price actually going to the upside, possibly giving us some sort of probe within here before we're able to look for selling opportunities. But just be cautious about this right now. If we're possibly looking at this on the 1 hour time frame, you can see we're within this small range right now. So there's a small range bouncing between these two levels. So even though we are taking, or at least if you do want very small sales, they could be, you need to manage your trade within that area. But for us, since this market is just ranging there, price could either breach the downside or we might see that price giving us that pullback. I think right now we need to just be patient to wait and see what ends up happening. So hope that's clear. As we move on to the next pair. Now, this is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. The Swiss franc here is the base currency. So we'll be looking for buying opportunities on this. You can see the price has been going up higher quite a bit during I think this was the previous week and the week before. Last week, it seems like we were getting a pullback coming in, which is a good thing because we do want to look for buying opportunities at a lower price. Right now, the price is back within a support and resistance area, which is very interesting to see whether or not we'll actually get the price taking off from here. The main thing we need to watch out for, you can see the way the sellers are coming down, the buyers pushing up. We want to see the sellers actually really struggling and the buyers actually holding. So I think within this area, there's a possibility that you could end up finding the price actually reacting within this area. Even if you are looking for your buying opportunity there is this seller who is the one who pushed down lower. So just be cautious about that because you could end up seeing the market reacting from that area and coming down lower. Now, since we do want to look for those buying opportunities, if this level doesn't hold and we see the price actually coming in lower, then chances are we could be looking for our buying opportunities lower down before we are able to take those buys to the upside. So in this one, we'll just wait to see what happens. But right now, being at a buyer's area, I think you might need to look at a smaller time frame to see what exactly is happening. and watch out for this problem area right there. So I hope that's clear on what we're looking at on the Swiss franc against the yen. Now, here we do have the New Zealand dollar against Swiss franc. We had this pair last week looking for selling opportunities, and it's a good thing we still have it for this week. Now, remember, we had pointed out last week we were within this particular buyer area. We did want to look for sell, but we did not want to look for selling opportunities there. We needed the price either to breach the downside, which unfortunately did not. The buyers did continue to go to the upside, but you can clearly see the price did manage to get towards this problem area. You can see how many times it attempted to go up, and all these proved right there before the market has attempted to actually come back within some support and resistance area. And we do seem as if we're attempting to come down now. So buyers here is still to look for selling opportunities. Happy to see big boy sellers that are the ones coming in. But as usual, we never want to sell at a buyer's area. We need one of two things to happen. This area could be breached to the downside. And if it is, and the price gives us that pullback, we should be able to look for those selling opportunities. But this being a buyer's area, there could be a possibility, especially sometimes you'll find the market attempting to come down and you'll see the price coming back. You might end up seeing it coming all the way till that extreme area before we are able to look for those selling opportunities. So right now, since we're within a buyer's area, don't chase just because we're seeing the sellers coming in. We could still see the market giving us even a pullback, at least maybe towards this area right here before we do see those sells. So right now, I think we just need to be a bit patient, wait to see what ends up happening. But ideally, we'll be waiting to see how that level is holding, whether it holds or whether or not the price is breached. So yeah, I hope that it's clear. The New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc.
All right. That's the last currency pair. Hopefully, you guys have taken note of all the Swiss franc pairs and what the plan is going to be looking like. So we've mixed and matched up everything on the sell with the neutral, everything on the buy with the neutral, and this is what the plan is going to be looking like for the week. So in terms of fundamentals this week, it seems like Wednesday is going to be a pretty heavy day. Today there isn't much that's happening. Doesn't mean that the chart wouldn't really move, but you can see that there's a bunch of news events from Wednesday, got some interest rates coming out. So you definitely should expect something to definitely end up moving for the New Zealand dollar. You can also see that there will also be some interest rate news events for the Canadian dollar as well, and of course some CPIs for the USD. So I think Wednesday and Thursday, definitely a lot of movement you should be expecting on the chart. So just make sure that you gear yourselves up for that. So I think we can end up looking at the Q&A to see if there are any questions. So I see Esther Kimani there, you're asking about Euro card. So good to see you here, Esther. For this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of this. This is what the plan is going to be looking like. If you can get rid of what we had from last week. So this is what we're expecting. Maybe to get the market, possibly the buyers can possibly end up continuing with their momentum, break this here to the upside, that maybe we can resume with the buys. Somewhere within there, or possibly end up getting the sellers reacting. Then maybe we can try to see whether we can get a buying opportunity somewhere within that region, within that area. So I hope that sorts you out, Esther. So I see Joe Mwini. Good to see you, Joe, as well. You're asking, hello, I missed Euro USD. If you can kindly do it, Euro USD. Well, you didn't miss it. I don't think it's on watch list this week because you can see the Euro and the US dollar both on the same side. So you could find that in as much as maybe the charts do seem like they are moving, and maybe we can even just go to it real quick, even if it's not on our watch list this week, you could find that maybe the market might continue to range. And you can see that the market has already started ranging. It could be some, sort of weakness that came in due to what happened with the non-farm payroll, but you could find that this market might actually not end up moving much. So that's the reason why we don't end up mixing and matching up things on the same side, to just make sure that we're avoiding such kind of situations. So unfortunately, it's not something that's on our watch list. So just remember, we only mix and match up the neutral versus the buys and the neutrals versus the sells. We don't mix and match up the sells together or anything on the buys and sells together or anything on the neutrals by themselves, because there's a possibility the markets might not really end up moving much. So unfortunately, Euro USD is not going to be on our watch list this week. So I'm not seeing any more questions, which is okay. Let's see how the markets do end up moving this week. Still should be expecting quite a number of moves, even if there isn't that much in terms of high impact news events, especially today and tomorrow. But Wednesday, Thursday, make sure that you're really on the lookout to see what pips you can end up getting. So I guess that's pretty much it from us. Let's see if there's anything else you want to add.
No.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, that's it from me.
All right. So I guess we'll see you guys next week in the next weekly swing. And of course, I know that some of you will also do end up seeing you in the daily analysis as well. So I hope we'll see you there as well. Remember that we're also going to be having the intermediate starting off tomorrow. So if you can, also feel free to join us at the Scope Markets offices. We're going to be starting the July intermediate tomorrow with session 1 tomorrow. So if you can, also feel free to join us for that. So with that, happy trading, guys. And as always, may the peace be with you.